saving money is going well. It's fine. We actually came into a little bit of money, not a load, just got a refund for something. So we decided to purchase a Cricut. It's actually something that's been on our list now for well over a year. There's a fair few projects that we think we can utilise it for, and we were researching the different types because you can get lower grade models like the Cricut Joy that just does like the classic vinyl that you imagine a Cricut doing, all the way up to, well, a really professional one, like a high industry kind of, like you're opening a shop kind of level one. And this is like the highest range home one. Doesn't mean you can't run an Etsy shop or something from it, but that's this one. This is the Cricut Maker 3. The reason we went for the Maker versus the others is both my husband and I do like a version of miniatures. So I make dolls' houses and he does Warhammer miniatures and Star Wars Rebel Legion and that sort of thing, and we both thought the wood cutting quality that the Cricut can do, because it can cut up to 2mm chipboard, that sort of thing, would be really handy. Eventually we'd love a laser cutter, but I don't have £4,000, I only had £400, so they're not cheap, but they were cheaper than a laser cutter, and this was on the list to buy before I started bookbinding. That's this video. Finally, I'm starting bookbinding. I've actually been slowly accumulating all the bits that I've needed, or I need, to rebind my very damaged version of Chronicles of Narnia, but for some reason my brain would not let me start even thinking about it, even though I kept scheduling it in my not really existing calendar, and I kept pushing it because I didn't have everything. It's like, once I start I will want to roll with it. And I'm going to start this video with an unboxing. I actually think the Maker is the box underneath. Hopefully you won't be able to read any of my addresses. I shouldn't be allowed to yield an X-Acto knife in my opinion. Oh, this is bigger than I expected it to be. Did I just call this an X-Acto knife? Yes, the Americanisms. So we call it Stanley knife. Didn't think this one through. Oh, goodness. I don't really know what to do now. I'm not joking, this is really heavy. I don't know where to put this. I'm gonna get it out. I'm gonna really have to read the manual and work out how this works, probably do a tester. How this is gonna help me bookbind is actually arguably the very last step. It's gonna be used to cut out the cover art to stick onto, or actually iron onto, the freshly leather bound book. I wanted to give it that gold foil effect that you would get with old time books. They would have typically been done with like leather tooling, and you can still do that, leather tool it and then put gold leaf in the embossed areas, or debossed areas I should say. And I could do that, but it seems that this is my first time I'm doing any form of bookbinding. I am going to do the slightly simpler route, and I've decided to do iron on. You could also do like the sticky version. It just, for me, that looks like it sits up above the leather slightly. I have some people do that, and that's not a problem. I think I just prefer the iron on look because I feel like it gives a flatter look, and therefore it's not the opposite to what the old book would be. So I'm going to read the instruction for this, but I'm going to open the other box. It should have been, or it should be, oh god, materials and cutting board and that kind of thing. So, set of 3 cutting mats. So it's the essential tool kit. So we've got in here, looks like scissors, some sort of mini guillotine, scraping tools, de-weeding tools, tweezers, that's the one, but they're like the reverse grip style. So instead of like pinching them closed to close them, you pinch them to open them. We then also got, because we want to do this, an engraving tip. So this can engrave metal, I believe. Only this machine level can do this, so this is another reason why we wanted the Maker and not the lower ones, because some of the projects we have, we would like to engrave metal. And we also got a debossing tip. We've got 2 different additional tips other than the standard knife, which should be in the Cricut. This is transfer tape, this is more transfer tape. We've got 1 bit of it in there, so the idea is when you cut it out on the mats, you then use your transfer tape, put that over the top to transfer it onto whatever you're doing in the same pattern. So if you cut something intricate out, you don't then have to place it afresh on the surface you're actually going to apply it to. And last but not least, we have two different gold foils, a matte and a shiny. My idea is to use a combination of the matte and the shiny to give a really cool striking effect. I said that's actually the last step, so that might not even be this video, who knows. Maybe I should actually start working on preparing the paper block. So this is my copy of Narnia. It's actually all 7 books in one. And the reason why this was my candidate for the first try of bookbinding is that. Half the pages have fallen out. I actually lent this book once to a friend at university. This had already happened and I forgot to warn her, and she was a huge book fan. When that happened, she freaked out that she had broken my book. And I was like, oh no, don't worry, that was me. By the way, this is the first time I've ever done it. I have said this. This is not a tutorial. This is me faffing and figuring it out, kind of winging it quite a bit. So if you are opposed to books being destroyed by amateurs, but like it's broken, that's like, can I mess it up? I don't know. Probably. So first things first is actually to try and repair these sheets. And for that, I've got this. It's acid-free linen tape. I think it's originally for like taping art pieces into a portfolio. I think it's going to work very similarly. I've got quite a few pages to repair here. And then because, why make this easy? Why not throw in some Fore edge painting on this bit? So I'm going to draw out a scene and watercolour it. I've never done this on a book. I haven't done watercolour in years. This is ambitious of me. But like I said, it's already damaged. I can't wreck it further. It's perfect time to experiment. Now, do I want to rip the cover off first, or do I want to do the sticking first? I think rip the cover. Oh, do I just go for it? Wasn't actually as bad as I thought. Oh no. There we go. Old movie cover gone. Sorry, Tilda. I better stick these back in. Please do check your pages before you start sticking them together. This stuff is permanent. Also, it turns out not the correct thing to use, but we'll discuss that later. We then need to cut out new end sheets and stick those in. And then it's time for sanding. So much sanding. If you think you've sanded enough, you definitely haven't. I thought I had, so at this point I'm drawing on my design to then paint with watercolours. Hi, Genius here. I forgot to hit record, which is kind of a good thing because I at one point thought I completely messed it up and went into panic mode. But what I was doing was adding a little bit of detail with some coloured pencils. I'm not a very good artist, at least not watercolour artist, so I think I'm just gonna leave it as is. It's my first one. It was a trial run anyway, see if I enjoyed it, see if I like the look of it. I put too much pigment on. I think that's my main issue. So I need to practice some watercolour before I do my next book, I think. Yeah, I'm happy with how it looks. It's very childish, but you know what? That's my art style. I'm going to let the residual moistness dry. And then I've got fixative. And this is just to seal in drawings and watercolours. It's not quite varnish, but it's like maybe like a really thin layer of glue. So I'll spray that on and I'm gonna leave it overnight, and tomorrow we'll be able to take it out of the book press and crack it open. Quite literally, it's going to take a little bit of crackling, but it'll be worth it, hopefully. It looks good. I like it. It's a little bit naive, but I like it. Oh, they're not too bad. They're separating a bit.
Separating already?
Oh, that was quite satisfying, wasn't it?
That's great. I don't think you need to do page by page. Nice. Very nice.
The only thing is, it is upside down. That's how I wanted it. But it's fine, because it's like that anyway.
Well, I wouldn't have known.
But if it's lying on a table, cover up, it's upside down.
Yeah.
my goodness, I need practice at that. But you know what, this was my practice run. It's not perfect. There's definitely like gaps where these pages were obviously lower. This one I can't work out what's the issue, but let's release it. When I get better at that, that's going to look stunning though. Maybe I'll try a different brand. I might also look into other methods like acrylic, maybe. Yeah, I don't mind the art style for this one particularly because it kind of is a little bit reminiscent of like the original sketches of the original books. It is still very crude, but you know what? For proof of principle and to repair this book that was falling apart, that I think has got to do with the fact up here, I think it's got to do with the fact that these pages, you can see they're separated by that linen tape. So I used so much foil trying to get an even thing. It wasn't happening for me. But yeah, now the edges are done. They're as done as they're going to be. I think I'll call it there for the night. I was really swearing yesterday with that gold foil. We got to the point that we did, and it will do, it's fine. So I never actually explained why bookbinding came to me as like, this is something I want to try. And basically I was looking for ways to use up fabric scraps that was a little bit more interesting, a little bit different than making makeup bags and I don't know what else. I do that, and I'm going to be doing that in a video really soon, with mostly my waterproof leftovers. But yeah, I came across bookbinding and turning any kind of cloth into a book cloth. So then I started to research that, and I went down a massive rabbit hole, ended up finding Nerdforge, and the video I'm on about is when they bound the entire Wheel of Time series as one book. And if you know that series, I haven't read it because it's a commitment. It's huge. I'm not doing that obviously, but I was like, oh, I really like the look of leather bound books. So it's gone completely off the using up fabric scraps. However, this next step does use fabric scraps. So we're gonna reinforce the spine with a bit of fabric. This is just a bit of cotton. It just needs to be thin-ish fabric. It's going to be hidden entirely. You're not going to see it. And you want it to be shorter than the entire book. I might trim that down a little bit more, but I do want it to overlap what we call the headbands. Now, if I were traditional bookmaker, I'd be sewing the book together by hand, and then at the top you would sew a headband with usually embroidery thread, but now you can buy them. And I've got multiple different colours, but Harry chose this one. And the last thing I'm also going to attach is a ribbon bookmark. I've chosen this one because it's got like a pale, it's like a pale cream colour, but it kind of looks like matte gold and shiny gold. So it will bring in the front design, and you want to stick that to the top so it passes through, so that way up. So it passes, you can pass it through the book. So this first, then the headboard, then the bit of fabric on the back, and then that needs to dry at least a couple of hours, I think. Probably going to leave it overnight. But yeah, then that is the text block actually finished. And then I can start working on the cover. Inch at the top, and then we want to go in. Let's cut it about there. This is Pin Flare bookbinding glue. I think craft glue works as well, but I just thought, what's done there? I've got to buy glue, I might as well buy bookbinding glue. Yeah, just kind of central-ish. This is the thing, I feel like you have to buy so much materials and they always come in like quite a bit of bulk. So I've actually got enough, a fair amount of bookbinding. I like this as an idea of like giving old books or like damaged books a second lease of life. I don't want to buy a new book and just rebind it because I don't like the cover. Yeah, headband stand proud. I'm actually going to cut a bit of this to lay this down so I don't glue the book to the table. So this is just baking paper. Okay, so I'm roughly lining it up in the middle. That's drying overnight. I don't think I need like a load of pressure on it, but I think I might just rest that on there just to keep it down. But yeah, that's basically the text block done. I'll come back tomorrow, I suppose. So it's the next day from when I glued the scrap bit of fabric on, which is now dried nicely, and obviously I haven't stuck it to the table, and the baking paper peeled off quite nicely. There are a few like little lumps that I didn't smooth out properly, but I actually think it's fine. I don't think you can see it on the inside of the cover sheet, but you can see there's a little bit of moisture damage. I didn't think about that, and what I should have done is got another piece of baking paper and slotted it in there to protect the pages inside from moisture. Like, it's not terrible, but there are, I'm not sure you'll be able to see it on the way actually. Like, this is not the way I'm bending it. This is moisture damage on the pages. It's still readable, it's still functional. But yeah, what I should have done is put a couple of pieces of baking paper in that cover sheet sandwich so the moisture didn't affect the rest of the book. But this is the practice run, we keep saying that, so it's still better than it was falling apart. But yeah, that's the text block actually fully finished, and that just needs a cover. So now it's time to get the Cricut out, which I've never used before. Did I need to use the Cricut to cut out the book board? Absolutely not. But equally, if I'd used a craft knife, would I have cut myself? I don't want to say absolutely yes, but there's a high chance. Anyway, I'm so glad I checked out Kelly Rousseau's videos on how to use Cricut, particularly her video on how to use the thicker chipboard. She said whenever she uses the heavy stuff at 2mm, and she's got a brand new knife, which mine is, and a brand new mat, which mine is, that she'd actually only cut it on the 1.5 setting, which is why I'm doing that. It is 2mm thick, but I'm doing 1.5, and she said even check it after like 9 or 10 passes, because it does 12 in total, because some people don't check and it ends up cutting through their mat, and I didn't want to sacrifice my brand new mat, so I did pause it and check it, and sure enough it had cut through after 9 passes, so that was good advice. Time to stick that leather onto those book boards. Now for this, I kind of followed a hybrid method between two people's methods. I'll link them both below. I did opt to dry it flat though, because I thought this would be easier to apply the design later, and I think it was. But basically, obviously too big for my book press, I just piled up a load of books on top of it for overnight until it was fully dry, and then the next day I tackled that design. There wasn't much to see as I was cutting it out on the Cricut, but here's a bit of de-weeding for you. And I did start to show you me pressing it on, but you don't need to see me ironing for ages. With the cover adorned and everything in place now, it's time to glue that text block inside the book. So I'm using that bookbinding glue using parchment paper to protect the sheets below, and just leaving a very thin margin by that spine just to allow it to open more easily. Final thoughts, because I do have a few critiques of my handiwork here. I think it looks better on camera than it does in real life. We'll start from the beginning. First things first, the linen tape, not the correct way to repair that. It's too bulky, it's too thick, but I honestly don't know a better way of doing that. Maybe I would have needed to do tissue paper and glue and hinge it that way and then have the linen tape on the outside. I don't know. I'm hoping that that's not going to be another issue in the future, another thing that I have to tackle, but I will try a different method if I do. Second, sanding. I did not sand enough. That is evident from the fact, the patchiness of the gold on the bottom. I need to sand more. I didn't sand enough. Even though I ate so much doing it, it was not enough. So maybe, I don't know, maybe an electric sander, but I don't know if that will just chew up the book. I'm a bit worried about that. Next, I did this upside down. If it was to lay on its back on a table, it's the wrong way out. Also, I used graphite carbon transfer paper and that doesn't rub out. It's fine for when I do my ceramic paintings because it burns off, but yeah, it was so dark, particularly the dragon, you can see I couldn't rub it out, so I had to try and make it part of the drawing, make it like a line drawing, the line's quite obvious and super cheap. A very light sketch would be better, so I need to practice my sketching skills again or do a different trick, which is rub a pencil on the back of your drawing and then do it, and then I should be able to rub that out, and that will be more time consuming but lighter pencil work. Same idea though. Moving on to the cover art, I actually really like the design. I don't like this matte gold in real life. I think it looks fantastic on camera. I'm not a fan of it in real life, particularly because I need to get better at pressing. So you can see there's some ink running there. I'm not really sure. I did that with a home iron and I think it's a case of not the correct tools. You can do it with a home iron, but you can also see with the foil there's bubbles, and after I did it I did some more reading into it, and it's basically your iron isn't fully flat. There's little holes in it where, especially if you've got a steam iron and that kind of thing, so that's why the pressing mats are better. Also, there's an app for this heater, this easy press, and it tells you what temperature to do it at, how long to hold it for, and has a timer on it, and it tells you what pressure, moderate pressure, light pressure, that kind of thing. That one I think is error of the wrong tools. And also I thought I knew how to press this stuff, but I didn't. I read afterwards, after I did all of this, that you should warm up the surface first and then put your vinyl down, and then, yeah, so that's my bad. But I learned and I got it all stuck. There is one more thing I want to do, and that's cover it in a leather sealant. I just haven't bought that yet. Oh, and the last thing I didn't like about my design choice, again, I think it looks great on camera, but again, in person, I'm not that big a fan, and that's the bright red. I wish I'd gone for more burgundy. I feel like the bright red is a bit gaudy. But other than that, it's a functional book. It's a fantastic proof of principle, proof of concept. Oh, I also did too thick of watercolour. I didn't do watercolour properly. And again, I've looked into different ways of doing four edge painting, and so that might be a video where I compare 3 different methods. We'll see. I actually really love it. Looks great on camera. I'm just not so happy about it in person, which is strange. And there's the, oh, again, so because I did this upside down, I deliberately did this upside down, so they're the right way to each other. But if I was to do it from scratch again, this needs to be the other way around, to be more normal. But then so does this. I'm happy that it's a proof of principle. Just a bit of practice now and see if I can't improve. But am I addicted to bookbinding? Time will tell. I have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of equipment. Like I said earlier, the way you buy these things, you end up with so much bulk anyway. So I've got a fair amount to continue doing bookbinding. But yeah, if you enjoyed watching me struggle learn a new hobby, join me again and hobby along with me. Bye. It's my first one. It was a trial run. It's not a snotty tissue.
Is it not a snotty tissue?
Oh, it's a painting tissue.
It's a painting tissue.
To be honest, though, they didn't actually see me use it because I very cleverly forgot to record last night.
Oh.
Recording?
I've been recording for ages.
Oh, okay.